Reconstruction.
A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is On Assignment.
Hello everyone, On Assignment with you again for a look beyond the headlines. I'm Alex Villarreal.
And I'm Imran Siddiqui. First up, Gaza destroyed, effects of the Israel-Hamas war through the eyes of a reporter who was there.
Then the Ebola crisis. We talk with our colleague just back from Guinea.
Gay marriage gaining ground in the United States, thanks in part to the Supreme Court.
And caring for California's homeless in new and unconventional ways.
This and more is straight ahead, so stay right here as we go on assignment. In the past 6 years, Israel and Hamas have fought 3 wars in the Gaza Strip. The latest conflict killed over 70 Israelis and more than 2,000 Palestinians. But the 50-day conflict that ended in late August has also taken a toll on those who survived.
War-weary Gazans suffer from extensive psychological trauma in addition to the physical devastation the conflict has left behind. VOA's Sharon Bain has seen the destruction firsthand. Here, she shares her impressions. Sharon, you were in Gaza for 5 days. What struck you most about your time there?
There's actually quite a bit that struck me. One was walking into Gaza itself. You go through a long tunnel. You go through no man's land. You actually walk through no man's land. It's very restricted. It's very hard to get in. There's the Israelis control all the border crossings except for the ones down by Egypt. So I guess that was the first thing that struck me, was how isolated it is, that people can't leave and people can't go in. It's very, very controlled. And then I traveled to the areas that had been hit during the war, the 50-day war, and you know, there were hundreds of thousands of homes that were hit, and thousands were absolutely destroyed, flattened, completely flattened.
Mohammed El-Shimberi's house was bombed in the recent war that flattened thousands of homes in Gaza. His family fled just in time. He says nothing has been done to rebuild, and the only solution is to stop the conflict.
If you want to help us, be on our side. End the Israeli occupation, because we cannot afford all these wars. This is the 3rd house of mine that was destroyed by the Israeli.
So the title of your piece begs the question, Reconstruction, what reconstruction? Why is the rebuilding necessary not happening?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know, first you got to imagine some of these houses a lot were just houses that were flattened. They're made out of concrete. And some were towers, like apartment towers. They're absolutely flattened. And there is no concrete to rebuild. They recycle some of this concrete, but you need money for that. There's a huge unemployment rate. Not everybody has the money for it. So they can't rebuild. And then material like cement is considered by the Israelis, the official that I spoke to, said, well, cement can be a dual use material. It can be used to build tunnels. It can be used for offensive reasons against Israel. So they want to inspect it. They want to make sure that everything coming in is not going to be used in the end against Israel. But I spoke to the UN, and the UN is involved in the reconstruction process. And what they said was that they would need 900 trucks a day coming into Gaza in order to be able to rebuild it and put it all back together in 2 years. They're only getting 3 trucks a day right now. So it's going to be a very slow process.
Your story on the reconstruction, it got a comment on our website that I want to highlight because I think it represents a viewpoint that many people have. It states that, quote, as long as Gazans support Hamas, their lives will be miserable. How would you respond to that assessment?
The Israelis feel that Hamas is a militant group. Hamas has, stated that it's against Israel. So, and they're very active. They're strong, but not everyone in Gaza supports Hamas. There are those who actually support a different way out of this situation. They don't think that militancy and bombings are the way to go. So, in the end, I think what happens is a lot of the civilians in Gaza get caught in the crossfire. Yes, you have a militant group. Yes, they have been in this war, and it is conflict. But there are a lot of people there who just don't support them. They just want to have a normal life, and they're exhausted. There's definitely a feeling of just exhaustion.
When you talk to officials on both sides of the divide, what's your sense of the major issues of this conflict, and when, if ever, will we see it resolved?
What the Israelis were telling me was that, look, you have a militant group, they're attacking us, and we have the right to defend ourselves. So, for example, even fishing limits, there are fishing limits to the fishermen can't go any further than right now roughly 6 nautical miles, and they're asking for a seaport. The Gazans want a seaport, but the Israelis are saying all of this can be used to attack us. Why would we allow or even encourage the building of this if we're going to get attacked? So in the end, it has to be a resolution between Hamas and Israel and Al-Fatah on the West Bank. There has to be a political resolution, but we've been waiting for that for years.
And the wait continues, but there is some good news for Gaza. More than $5 billion in donations have come in internationally for reconstruction in the region, and that is more than expected, with some anticipating donors might be Gaza war-weary as well.
Time for a break. Coming up, Ebola, a look at the outbreak in Guinea, one of the countries worst affected. You're watching On Assignment.
What we do is bring viewers the stories behind the stories.
We are able to touch on things that are important to people.
To wake up in the morning, come to work, cover the story of the day, inform the people, that's what makes me tick.
So you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. I'm hoping that the audience can learn and begin to look at themselves as active actors.
It's really a conversation, the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close.
Washington Forum is made by the viewers, for the viewers. I come to work every day knowing that, I'm bringing something to Africa. That's what we do, real news.
We hope that our viewers are getting inspired when they watch our show, but they're learning, getting a view of the world from a different perspective. Most of the information is information you can use.
We go beyond the headlines and dig a little deeper. Our goal is to provide a more well-rounded portrait of things so that people can make better decisions and have better information to help them in their lives.
Live Talk is an interactive radio to TV program that is trilingual, broadcasting Shona, English, and Bele.
The audience is the controller of the show. Whatever they want, they always get it on Live Talk.
And this gives me that inspiration to come to work.
I don't think that you can compare it to any other news organization.
As fears about Ebola widen, efforts are underway to contain the virus in the countries hardest hit, the West African nations of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. VOA web reporter Carol Gunsberg was in Guinea recently and joins me right now. Thank you so much for joining me. You visited a facility. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was at the Donka Field Hospital run by the Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders. I had a chance to see some of the conditions there. The camp has been running for about 6 months. They're training new groups of medical personnel, new doctors and new nurses, but what I heard from them repeatedly was how much more help they could use. I didn't see patients close up. They made us keep our distance. I did see a little girl with her pigtails sticking up over a fence in the distance. And later when I went to inspect around a corner, I could hear her crying and I could see her mother pacing back and forth. That was my experience.
Do they have some kind of a protocol once an infected patient comes in? What do they do with it?
Patients are admitted through a special port and they're immediately isolated from other patients. Now, I was not in that part of the facility. I saw where they're admitted. They're actually greeted by a former Ebola patient, a survivor, who can help them adjust very quickly to the camp and its experiences.
And you also attended a town hall with the Guinean Prime Minister Mohamed Said Fofana. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so that trip took place because a few days earlier there had been an attack by some people in the town of Fort Caria on some Red Cross workers. They believed that the Red Cross burial team had mishandled the body of a woman. So there was a lot of intense pent-up emotion. A couple of the Red Cross workers were attacked. Fast forward to this trip into the motorcade, the Prime Minister arrives and there's a big town hall meeting. Essentially, he's trying to assuage everyone, to calm them down, and to also make it clear that it's within their power to help control the spread of Ebola. Then suddenly there are 6 young men marched up in front of us. I'm up on the stage next to a CDC epidemiologist who was brought there to speak. The Prime Minister dismissed the charges or released the 6 young men who had been held in the attack. That was greeted by a lot of applause, and so apparently it did take down the temperature in the room. Later on, the Prime Minister promised that there would be more money coming in for education and sought assurances from the people there that they would help work to fight Ebola. So that was the shouting, that was some of the
I can
commotion.
imagine people must be really tense out there. But,
Yes.
but if in 30 seconds, if you can tell us a little bit about the jump roping group, the girls' jump roping group that you witnessed.
Yes, I did. That's a youth development and health program started by an American Olympic medalist, Ron Freeman. And this International Medalist Association teaches girls how to be fit, and girls typically don't have opportunities for sports in Guinea, but they're also getting health messages, including how to prevent the spread of Ebola.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll keep a watch on the story. VOA News reporter Carol Gunsberg. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We're taking another break. When we come back, the evolution of gay marriage laws in the United States. You're watching On Assignment.
Every song has a different meaning to each person that hears it and interprets it differently. Border Crossings is unique in that it lets the listeners decide what we're playing. We bring in guests so that our audience has access to some of the biggest names in pop music today, and we reach out to the audience each and every day in different ways.
Same-sex marriage rights in the United States have accelerated dramatically in recent years, and they just got another boost.
The Supreme Court opened the door for at least 5 more states to marry gay couples when it opted not to review lower court rulings overturning bans against the unions. And those states are Virginia, Indiana, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and Utah.
VOA's Michael Bowman has been following this issue, and he tells me just how far gay marriage rights have come.
At the beginning of 2004, same-sex marriage was legal nowhere in the United States. In 2012, when President Barack Obama came out in support of same-sex marriage, it was legal in just 6 states plus the nation's capital. Today, it is legal in more than 30 states. So just in the last 2 years, we have seen the quintupling of the number of states where it's legal.
We feel vindicated. You know, people have been working for a long time for places to recognize that equality is equality, that fair is fair.
The states of Virginia, Indiana, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and Utah will join 19 others that already recognize gay marriage. This comes after a Supreme Court decision not to review federal appellate court rulings that all struck down same-sex marriage bans.
This most recent Supreme Court decision follows last year's ruling by the Supreme Court to strike down a federal ban on recognizing same-sex marriage. What do these decisions say about how the court and the federal judicial system is viewing this issue?
So far, the U.S. Supreme Court has not decided whether there is a constitutional right for gay people to marry. They haven't touched that. What they did do a year ago was to say that in the states where same-sex marriage is recognized, those legally married couples have to be recognized by the federal government. Now we have a decision where they refuse to intervene, they refuse to review circuit court decisions striking down same-sex marriage ban. And I think the connection is this. In striking down the federal ban on recognizing same-sex marriages, the court sent a message that it takes a dim view of anti-gay discrimination. And that really seemed to propel a lot of court cases thereafter. And the lower judiciary, the lower federal judiciary, seems to have fallen in line.
Now, despite this monumental shift we've seen in the legal system, there are still a lot of people who oppose same-sex marriage. So what have they been saying after this decision?
Well, they are very disappointed. They say a number of things. Number one, that the state bans that have been set aside, that have been ruled unconstitutional, were approved in most of those states through a ballot process, and that you have unelected judges who are throwing these bans out and in effect nullifying the votes of tens of millions of Americans. And they find it particularly galling that the Supreme Court would allow this to happen without so much as giving them a day in court. I think that the pro-same-sex marriage side would argue that there are certain things that are not subject or should not be subject to the popular vote, to popular whims. And among those are the fundamental rights that Americans enjoy in our democracy.
So what's the future of this then? What can we expect to see in terms of the legal system, how this battle might play out in the future in terms of the legal system and then also in the court of public opinion?
Most people think that eventually the Supreme Court will weigh in, that this is too large and weighty an issue for them not to, in addition to the fact that there could be a circuit court that rules in favor of upholding them.
What do you think's been holding them back?
Well, traditionally, the Supreme Court rules when there is a disagreement among the lower courts. And so far, there's unanimity among the federal courts. There's no dispute for them to arbitrate. One thing that I think is fascinating here, if the Supreme Court does take this up and issues a ruling, there is the possibility of nationwide same-sex marriage rights. What there is not the possibility is that the Supreme Court will eliminate same-sex marriage rights across the country.
May you be blessed and go forth in joy.
The Supreme Court can say that same-sex couples have a constitutional right to marriage. Or they can say that they don't have a constitutional right to marriage, but states may allow them to marry anyhow. So in a sense, the pro-gay rights side has won, no matter what the Supreme Court does.
And again, that was VOA correspondent Michael Bowman. Now, in addition to those 5 U.S. states we talked about, gay marriage cleared legal hurdles in at least 3 more U.S. states recently. Those are Nevada, Idaho, and Alaska.
We go next to California, where 3 days a week, a bus pulls up in downtown San Francisco. But this is no ordinary public transportation vehicle, Alex. The bus actually offers showers for the homeless.
It does, and these mobile showers are provided by a small charity called Lava May, playing off the Spanish word for wash me, and they provide a critical human need. On assignments, Philip Alexio brings us this story from VOA's Los Angeles correspondent Mike O'Sullivan.
Those who live on the streets struggle to find basic services, something as simple as a bath or shower. The San Francisco charity is helping by providing showers for the homeless 3 times a week. Martin Rodriguez, who keeps all of his belongings in a folding grocery cart, came to clean up.
I'm waiting for housing, and I sleep in the streets, so I need to take a shower in the blue bus. It's a good service.
Mike, we've heard stories about people trying to provide shelter for the homeless or trying to feed them or take care of them. But in your piece, we discovered something new, that the people are also trying to give showers to the homeless. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there are plenty of food programs in areas of San Francisco or Los Angeles or other cities, and there are some shelter programs, but the big gap is for sanitary facilities. And this particular woman named Denise Sandoval overheard a homeless woman complaining about that, about how hard it is to keep clean. And she read a story about the local transit district converting to a new type of low fuel buses, and she tried to find out what's happening to the old buses, and she asked if they could be donated, if she could get a few of them and convert them to shower buses. And that's what she did. She's got one up and running. She's got 3 more in reserve that are just waiting for the funding to be retrofitted. The project got underway in June after an internet campaign raised $75,000 to refurbish an old bus. The internet giant Google provided an additional $100,000. Lava Mae's Leah Filler says this is a one-of-a-kind service in San Francisco or anywhere else.
No one, as far as we know, is turning old buses into shower buses like we do, and operating on a kind of level of collaboration with the city and local government, with the nonprofits, with the private sector that we operate with.
The people who are getting these opportunities to clean themselves, they must be really excited. How was your experience one-on-one talking to these homeless people about this?
Well, it is rough living on the streets, and people say one of the biggest problems is trying to keep yourself clean. And when you're living on the street, you're eating at irregular hours, and you just can't even wash your face in the morning. It's a real problem. And to get a hot shower can really make a difference.
It's nice to feel my skin and not feel dirt on it, and wash the smell off.
So people do have other facilities, other charities providing services for them, but just being able to get a hot shower in the morning, people say really makes them feel 100% better.
But how do they keep their buses clean? Because to sanitize someone else, you also need to sanitize the place where you're allowing them to take showers.
They've got a very small staff, basically one person, and it's other than that is volunteer help.
It's brought me such joy. At the same time, it's so sad because people have to use this service, that they're on the street, and I never forget that.
It's basically, an industrial kind of operation to get people in, get them a quick shower, and get them out again.
Now, in the piece, Denise Sandoval, she talked about expanding this, but without any money, how do they plan to take it to different parts of California or across the U.S. for that matter?
Well, for San Francisco, they've got 3 buses in reserve, and the buses have been donated, and they have this ongoing campaign through the web, through the internet, and they've just had a terrific response. And Denise in San Francisco is sort of set up this project and just realized there were a lot of people who wanted to help.
As far away as Mongolia and Ghana to just down the way in Palo Alto and San Jose, we're beginning to have conversations about how we can support those efforts.
They're really they hope at an early phase of this, and they'll expand in San Francisco, and they hope to get people in other cities and other parts of the world to duplicate this kind of a service.
And Lava Mae's message? Delivering dignity one shower at a time. The group says, with hygiene comes dignity, with dignity comes opportunity.
Amazing story. Speaking now of opportunities, apartments, cars, dresses, and surfboards. If you want them, but you don't want to buy them, these are just a few of the items people can now rent directly from other people in today's robust sharing economy. And we've got one very central part of all of our lives to thank.
Which is, of course, the internet. VOA's Daniela Schreier looks at how peer-to-peer commerce websites have taken hold in a big way in New York City.
With more than 1 billion cars in the world, Relay Rides helps owners put their idle cars to work.
Anas Kasawat made more than $1,000 this month.
I've always thought about why couldn't I rent my own car? And it was difficult to find the right insurance and stuff, and nobody would do it. So Relay Rides was the perfect choice at the end.
Security and safety are big concerns in the sharing economy. The international ride-sharing service Uber was recently criticized for not responding to customers' concerns regarding accidents and theft. But Relay Ride's $1 million policy helps build consumer confidence behind the wheel. Its unique inventory of electric, luxury, and stick-shift models makes it fierce competition for traditional rental companies. The software-driven service is 35% less expensive than traditional rental companies in major metropolitan areas. But economics are only part of the reason people are using technology to share, says CEO Andre Haddad.
I think a lot of people are sensitive to their footprint, their societal footprint, their environmental footprint. And when you think about all the cars that are out there that could be better utilized and will have less need for more cars, that's also a big motivation for a lot of our users in listing out their car on Relay Rides.
Darren Swanson rents out his bikes on Spinlister. For him, it's all about connections and community.
I thought it was a good way to meet some people and share what I have.
For Spinlister's Andrew Beatty, the sharing economy means connecting like-minded people with a shared passion.
And I really see that everywhere. We're in 66 countries now. I could go to Bangladesh and feel the same way meeting someone who loves biking as much as I do.
For now, bikers and drivers in New York can enjoy the ease and affordability of sharing. As the industry grows, though, its technology and services are likely to be challenged. Daniela Schreier, VOA News, New York.
Well, Alex, as they say, sharing is caring. So we'd like to tell our audience out there, if you guys would like to share anything that you've seen on our program, or if you want to ask us any questions, just check out our Facebook page, and you can get that by searching VOA On Assignment. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and we do answer every message that we see on Facebook, so please do get in touch with us. You can also watch all of our On Assignment episodes and segments on voanews.com. Just follow the Programs tab to our page.
On behalf of everyone at On Assignment, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.